Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Film Seizure. I am Jason Oliver, and I am joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Jeff Arbuckle. Say hello, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going? Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
He's very serious this week.
I think he's trying to do my sexy thing.
You heard him? You heard from him? His name is Chuck. Chuck, say hello.
Hello, Chuck.
Jason's got his NPR voice going.
I do have an NPR voice on. Kind of my serious, spooky, sexy voice.
Oh no!
We are in the last week of Spooky Month. It is our Halloween episode. Happy Halloween, everyone!
Happy Halloween!
And we decided to talk about a classic today. For this Halloween, we've been kind of teasing it with the last few weeks, sort of pale imitators, good in their own right, but huge debt to this week's movie, which is 1968's Rosemary's Baby, directed by the polarizing Roman Polanski.
Do we want to say anything about him?
No, we talked about it in Chinatown. Disclaimer, I guess, is, you know what? Not going to get into it. I think we all know what went down, and it's not cool. But he made some good movies.
He made a few good movies. That's for
We're going to separate the art from the artist.
We're going to talk about them in their own right. You can feel however you feel. You're not wrong. If there's a specter that hangs above his movies for you, I don't blame you. I do think there's some interesting things about this movie that we can talk about in the context of Polanski's personality. But yeah, we're not going to make it a whole thing. So moving on. So, when's the last time y'all saw this one? Has it been a while?
Not that long for me. It's been a Monster Mondays alum.
Okay.
So, somewhere in the first 100 episodes I watched. So, a few years ago.
Okay.
The last time I watched this was never.
What?
Really?
Which is kind of surprising, right? I'd never seen it.
I'm surprised by that.
I know like multiple scenes from this movie because you do, right? If you watch any kind of anthology show about, or I don't know if that's, an anthology best of list, shit like that. So I know the story.
Did you watch the Cursed
scenes.
Films episode about this one? That was a good one.
Probably. Or I might have skipped it because I hadn't seen the movie yet. I do that. I do that with those things. So I don't recall seeing it. Yes, first time. And I was honestly a little bit weary because it felt like it would be one of those things where it's the standard, but everything that is imitated over the years has found a way to, not everything, but things have found a way to surpass it, right? Like they've done what Rosemary's Baby did better. That was my feeling going in. Totally wrong. This movie is astounding.
Yes.
It's astounding.
Now, I hate to bring this up again because I bring this up every time we talk about something like that. And Jason doesn't remember this, but his initial reaction of Easy Rider was not positive, but he's changed. I mean, he realizes now it's like, oh no, this is ground zero. This is true counterculture
Absolutely.
business. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and that's cool. And sometimes there are examples better, but in this case, I don't even know.
I don't know if there's anything that has been imitated from this movie I mean, I can't think of anything that's better than what this movie started, or at least,
we talked on this podcast and also off the podcast together about how frustrated we get with movies that don't believe the female protagonist.
Yes.
Right? Well, this is ground zero for that as well. But it is so absolutely perfect for its time and place.
Yes.
That it is the true horror of this movie, right? Like it has been imitated, it has been used as plot points and plot devices countless times since. But Rosemary's Baby, in my opinion, is making a very feminist point in this movie. I mean, in 1968, when this came out, women could still not get bank accounts. They couldn't get a checking account. They couldn't get a line of credit without their husband's signature. If they were single, they were turned away. Right? This is like 6 years before the Equal Opportunity Credit Act. Right?
30 years before a man could get in trouble for raping his wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, right? Legitimately, that was the 90s, I think. So to me, like, this movie, in its time and place, is fucking explosive. And I totally understand why it got the reaction it did. Right? It is astounding. It truly is. And it's almost like weird to me that it was made by Roman Polanski, who, this is where I want to talk a little bit about how his persona, his actual personality, him as a person, clashes so much with the message of this movie, in my opinion. Well, but he didn't write it, right? I mean, he wrote the script. He wrote the script,
but by all accounts, he did write the script very closely hewn to the novel.
So the novel's by Ira Levin. Ira Levin wrote a lot of feminist novels because he followed this up with Stepford Wives.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
and I'm pretty considering I've covered both of those at B Movie Enema, the 75 and the 2004 turd. I'm quite well familiarized with the Stepford Wives story. And Ira Levin, I mean, like, he wrote books that I think later found an audience, but at the time that they were released were thought of as silly and inconsequential. Because both Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives were considered just ridiculous concepts.
Yeah. That's interesting thing too, is that William Castle, he optioned Rosemary's Baby before it was even published. He bought the rights and then he brought it to Paramount because he wanted to direct it. And for however anyone feels about Robert Evans, it was a very smart move to not let William Castle direct Rosemary's Baby because he wanted to. He was like, I'm directing this. And then Robert Evans was like, well, we have you on an exclusive 3-picture deal. So if you want to let that expire and make it on your own, go with God. But if you want to, let someone else direct it and you be a producer and we'll pay you twice your rate, then let's make the fucking movie. And he was like, okay, let's make the fucking movie.
Oh my God. So that's similar. That's similar to The Offer. In some ways, there's some of that stuff going on with Robert Evans. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
No, I was going to say, are you saying, Jason, that you don't want a version of Rosemary's Baby where in the auditorium a guy dressed as like a horned Satan would be running around chasing women?
Right, exactly.
Because I kind of do.
I mean, maybe
it's like, this is William fucking Castle, man.
It's kind of like the sequel, though, right? I mean,
well, okay, but I'm a fan of William Castle's work.
I am too. Don't get me wrong. I am as well. But I think that this movie has so much weight to it that William Castle would have eradicated right out of the gate.
I mean, think about this also. We could have gotten Vincent Price as Roman Castevet. Come on.
I don't know, man. I think everyone we got was perfect.
Well, sure. But I also want to see that other alternate universe version.
I'm not like, yes. In an alternate universe, I would totally watch that version of Rosemary's Baby. I would. But I would bet bananas to donuts to whatever it is. Yeah, Chuck is like, what?
Well, bananas to watermelons? Are we going back to house?
That it would not be nearly as good. It just wouldn't.
I mean, okay, but
I want to say one thing.
We do have Alicia Cook in this, though, who's also from House on Haunted Hill.
I always thought it was Elijah Cook, but anyway.
I only recently found out that it's Alicia.
Interesting. So back to the ground zero point about women not being believed. It is totally believable in the context of this film, whereas the ones that are more modern, you're like, Jesus Christ, people, because there are people that are on the payroll, in quotes, that wouldn't believe her because they know what she's saying is true. Does that make sense? Like they have to feign ignorance about the situation.
Yeah.
And then women are, I don't know, I don't want to talk about the doctor yet, but him not believing her makes total sense too. Like,
yeah, because he could look at it as she's just being emotional,
hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of those words, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's very, very that's very much a term that was used to throw away, 90% of women's concerns medically in this time and period was, it's just a form of hysteria, which has no fucking medical consequence at all.
Can we blame like Kellogg for that shit? I think we can blame Kellogg for that. Isn't he the one that invented the hysterectomy, I think? I can't remember. I'll have to look that up. I might be talking out of turn here.
He definitely invented Fruit Loops.
Yes.
Some people go Fruit Loops.
But have you seen Road to Wellville? Have you seen Road to Wellville?
No.
About the Kellogg's?
It's been a long time. Yeah.
It's fucking good. And yeah.
Well, the hysterectomy itself is a valuable procedure, but tied to curing some sort of form of female insanity,
and that's what it was used for.
Right,
then.
Is fucked. Yeah. Man, what the hell was I talking about?
Robert Evans, William Castle.
I don't know, but.
Oh, we were talking about the trope of not believing.
Oh, yes.
The woman. Yeah. To be honest with you, it's not just not believing women when obvious things are wrong that irritate me in movies. It's not believing anybody when it's like, there is literally a monster over there and somebody looks at the monster and they're like, huh, yeah, that just looks like a giant dog. It's like, fuck, no, you can't build a movie around that. But in realistic terms like this, where this is all treated extremely straight, you can, and in the time period, you can you get it, right? It's like,
well, it's different because it's not necessarily that no one believes her. It's that everyone knows she's telling the truth, but they're gaslighting her.
They're all in, yeah.
It is
except for one person. There's
the gaslighting of Rosemary would be the apropos title here, because that's exactly what happens. Yes, and you're right. The one person who's not in on it does believe her, or he doesn't even necessarily have to believe her because she doesn't know what she's experiencing yet. He knows that she's in trouble just by looking at her, just by talking to her.
Hutch. I love fucking Hutch.
Hutch is the best, but man.
Hutch isn't just the best. He's fucking Dr. Zayas.
Yes.
Oh, he is?
That's him? Maurice Evans, yeah.
Beautiful.
So it's less about like not believing women, I guess. It's more about the gaslighting of the patriarchy, right? It's the we know better. Us men know better. We know more about your pregnancy than you do. Yes, you might be growing this child within you, but we've seen all the pregnancies that could ever be pregnant, and yours is not that significant, right? It's like, it's just this like insipid, insidious sort of just talking down, patronizing. She's just patronized at every turn. And it's so hard to watch. It's so hard to accept. But it's like, this is reality in 1968. And it's reality for a lot of women still today, right?
Yes.
No, I'm shaking my head. This is not a visual format. So yes, I agree.
and so that's why I think this movie is so like, it gets under your skin, because I think it's reacting to some of this that's happening at the time. Like, women's lib is sort of emerging around this time period. There's a backlash against that, right? Because the white men in power who can't handle it are fighting against that. So then there's this emergence of this perspective, but it's portraying it as horror. And you see this movie today, and you can see it all like written out in metaphor, right? It's all right there. I don't know how much of that was picked up by most audiences at the time, but I guarantee you women who watched this movie reacted to that. They saw it, and they saw themselves in Rosemary. Like, I 100% believe that.
Sure. And they probably understood, too, that yeah, that's what you're saying, I guess, but all the gaslighting and everything, like, there was probably some form of suppressing that back then, too, for women. Like, they wouldn't speak out like Rosemary tries to.
Yes.
And then immediately has to back off it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm just being hysterical, right?
Right.
Like, so many times in this movie, she's getting backing off of her own suspicions because, oh, I'm just being crazy woman. I'm hormonal. I'm pregnant. I'm whatever, right? And she's not trusting herself. And when she finally does, it's a little bit too late. And then when we talk about the final scene, I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Sure. I'm sure lots of people dislike the way that goes, but we'll talk about it when we get
absolutely.
there.
I think there's two sides of the coin, though. It's fascinating. That's going to be a good discussion, but we're gonna hold off on that.
Hold off on that.
Hold off on it.
So the Bramford, that's a cool fucking place, right?
One of my notes is
it's the Dakota.
Yeah,
is the actual hotel. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, is the name of it. Yeah, it's Bramford in the novel and in the movie, but it's funny in the novel. They even the guy who is their I think it's actually Hutch who tells them, why don't you just get an apartment at the Dakota instead of the Bramford? Because the Bramford has this history, right?
Right.
Which is Bramford.
So one of my notes in this was, how expensive do you think those apartments are today?
Oh my God, so expensive.
I mean, those are like multi-million-dollar apartments. Those things are huge.
I mean, yes.
And it's like John Cassavetes is a struggling actor who has to have some devil shit happen to knock Tony Curtis out of the lead role of a play that he wants. Like, well, that's. I by agree. The way, that was Tony Curtis on the phone when she is talking to him.
Well, it wasn't that long after this movie came out that John Lennon and Yoko Ono were living at the Dakota.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, it was probably in the minds of anybody from New York City watching this movie were like, yeah, that's an expensive apartment. Yeah.
Right. Oh, shit, I can't remember what I was going to say. So
while you're thinking on that, here's my first reference to the now newly released prequel, Apartment 7A. At one point in the movie, Terry, played by Julia Gardner, says, and look now, I'm living in the Bramford, as it's a big deal there. Yeah. So it's like, so even then, it would have been an expensive apartment. So, I mean, it's...
But just like every New York City apartment building, you see like the wear and tear because the Bramford in this has got the tiles are coming up, the paint is peeling in the hallways. Like it's not perfect. It's not like this gilded luxury, but the fact that the apartments are so big
and where it's
located, it's desirable.
It's Upper West Side, right?
Yeah, you pay a lot for dingy and
well, and it's because it also seems like it's right next to, if it's the Dakota, isn't it right next to Central Park also?
The Dakota would be, I think, I don't know exactly where, but yes, Upper West Side makes sense.
One thing to note here, because you're talking about how much this place cost, like they don't go into this, but if you think for any little bit about why Guy Woodhouse does what he does, it's because he's underwater.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, so putting him in a place that's too expensive for him because he wants to treat his wife, right, puts him in a position where he has to do things he wouldn't normally do. So it makes his arc make sense to me.
It makes this movie so rewatchable because I rewatched it. I was watching this movie, knowing, where things go. And I was keyed on Guy this whole time, right?
Right.
Because you can there's so many little things that he does, he reacts to, that is like so obvious to where this thing is going. And I don't know, Chuck. I mean, you've seen a lot of movies, and you already knew kind of where this was going anyway. But were you picking up on a lot of that stuff too?
Yeah, yes, but mostly his attitude towards her, and which is funny. Like, I bet you if you're my kid or someone in their 20s now, they will immediately notice that because they don't understand what the 60s and the 70s were like, or maybe if they don't, but
they also see the trope, right?
Right, the trope is there as well, but like in the context of the film, he's just being a man a lot of times too. So you could like disregard his behavior, right? Because this is what men acted like. So I did know, but it is, I think it does teeter on that well. Like the things he does that are obviously leading towards the end could just be because he's Guy, not because
There's one moment that stands out for me. I'm sure you guys caught it, but it's when she finally stops feeling pain, and she says she can feel the baby moving, and she wants Guy to feel the baby moving, and he reacts like in revulsion, like he
recoils.
He recoils. Oh man, that's so good.
Yeah. By the way, the Dakota, or in this case, the Bramford, is like directly across the street of Central Park West. It's right there. Yeah. So that's all expensive shit right there.
Yes, very much so. All right. Well, I don't know. How do we want to go into this? So we've hit on some themes. We've talked about some of the kind of big picture stuff. Should we just dive in?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay. Let's do it.
Let's
go for it.
So the movie opens with a lullaby, right? The opening credit sequence and the subsequent scene. Dick Seibert, who was the production designer on this, he worked with Polanski on a few different things. He said that the idea here was to make this a Doris Day comedy opening, in some ways, like make it very lighthearted. Right, like the young couple searching for an apartment. The sort of like the flowery pink font of the credit sequence.
It's kind of like House of the Devil's beginning a little bit. Very
much so. Yeah, absolutely.
Or vice versa, I guess.
It's a bit lighthearted, but honestly, like the lullaby is creepy.
Yes, it is.
Like it's creepy. Yeah. no matter how you kind of think know which way you approach it, that is pretty creepy. And I always think nowadays, Chuck, you probably do too, the Mike Patton's Phantomas cover of the Rosemary's Baby.
Oh yeah.
Is
from
like
Phantomas?
It heightens all of that creepiness. That's what I always think of. But when you hear the original, you can kind of in some way, like, all right, if I'm thinking about an innocent 1968, you can kind of see what they're trying to do here. It's a fairly benign, lighthearted entryway into what we're about to see. But then yet nothing really is ever horrific in this movie, right? You're either with Rosemary or you're not. It's kind of like this building paranoia that you believe it or you don't. And until the end, there's an ambiguity there too. So this is a very odd horror film in the sense that there's no real actual horror happening on screen. It's all like what you feel is happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because like really the first hint that there's real horror going on is when she's drugged.
Yes.
Because obviously, I mean, she says it herself. This is no dream. It's really happening. And then she wakes up with all the scratches on her.
Yeah.
I think the weird root gives you that impression too, even if you don't know where this is going. When she meets, what's her name for the first time, and she recoils at the smell of
it depends on if you believe the gaslighting, right? And right. I don't think anybody really does. Like, I don't believe it's that ambiguous. Ambiguous. Sorry, I don't think the movie's that ambiguous. But apparently, that was a intention. But again, I think that goes into the movie-going audience of 1968. Like, what are they thinking when they see this movie? Do they believe Rosemary? I mean, maybe some people didn't, right? I don't know.
She's just being emotional and hysterical.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, what a silly movie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's a movie that at the time it did not get quite as well received as it did shortly after.
It made a lot of money, though.
It made a lot of money, and again, that it's hard to say exactly, because it's probably not a movie that it could have made a lot of money off of the book, because the book was popular. But yeah, it's something that like critics kind of poo-pooed for a few years, but it didn't take long for it to be, to be looked back on with second, reevaluations. And also, let's face it, we've talked about this before, but critics' tastes change also. It's
yeah.
Like there's so many movies today.
It was the novel was seen as lightweight.
Yeah.
So that kind of made it cast a specter on the film. So critically, it was looked at as a little bit lightweight. But then when you start to kind of peel back the onion, yeah, it doesn't take much to kind of see what's really happening here.
Yeah, because I mean, like, there's a lot of movies that we grew up with that universally, even by critics our age, are thought of as classics that at the time, the critics of a different age just thought, this is garbage, this is trash, so yeah, those things age well. And I think it's also, I think there's also something else this movie does is this is really the birth of the original run of Satanic Panic. All of the supernatural movies of the 70s didn't actually start with The Exorcist. It started with this movie. It's just that The Exorcist was that much more popular and one of those movies that is just an all-time, like, where were you the first time you saw it type of thing. Whereas this one was a little bit under the radar for a few years.
Oh, I think Exorcist great movie, right? Just in general, but there's so much shock value there that is not
that's exactly
present in this movie. This is like, even the moments that could shock you in this movie are very restrained.
Yep.
Like extremely restrained.
This is a movie much like Jaws, where people may not think of it as a horror movie, even though it has all those elements of horror in it.
Until the last 10 minutes. Like Jaws, I can kind of see the argument.
Sure.
On occasion that it's not a horror movie, but it's a fucking horror movie. Like,
yeah.
We shouldn't have to debate that.
The building tension, the eco, aspect of it. Yeah, it's a horror film.
I think most of these people are that say it's not a horror film are our age or older, and they grew up as slashers, and that is what horror is.
Yeah, I mean, this is October 30th as this episode airs, and it's we could be talking about a slasher movie for Halloween. No, we're talking about we're going a little bit different here. We're going a little higher brow horror, a little higher horror. This would have been an A24 movie if it was made 40 years later,
probably
50 years later.
Yeah. But Halloween, like, that can happen, right? Halloween can happen. Friday the 13th can happen, but this is more real.
Yes.
Right. Even if it's use of like a hysteria people have about satanic panic, like this could happen.
Well,
maybe not the actual birth, but
in the words of Charles Grodin in this movie, well, I don't believe in witchcraft, but I do believe there's a lot of crazy people in New York.
Yeah, exactly. But
I don't believe in the devil, but I do believe in Kaiser Sose. Sorry.
Right. No, I was just going to say, it's like, again, this is how this movie plays it so straight, right? Yeah. Like, as much as the shock value is there in The Exorcist, that movie is played extremely straight too, where it makes it feel real just because everybody else is taking it so seriously.
But the girl's head turns around and there's shit in there you see that lets you know you're in a
Sure.
different experience.
But
I'm with you. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what Rosemary goes through, what Chris McNeil goes through, just the desperation of, can't somebody tell me something that will help me? That's the horror here.
Right.
Okay. So they're looking at the apartment. Alicia Cook Jr. is taking them through the apartment. There's an odd thing about the apartment. There's a dresser drawer, secretary, I guess is the formal word for it, that has been pushed against a wall, and there's a closet behind that. And Alicia Cook Jr. is like, help me move this. There's a closet back there. This shouldn't be here. So they move it. He's kind of wondering, like, why the hell was this there? The old lady who lived here could not have possibly have pushed that there. Rosemary's kind of curious. There's a lot of plants in the apartment. The woman who had this apartment had recently passed away. What did she pass away from? I forget.
She was in a coma and passed away in her sleep.
She was in a coma.
What is told.
Yeah, coma, passed away in sleep. Again, 7A does a lot to explain more of that.
I'm sure this talk gets into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
she goes the same way that a later character does.
Right.
So I think these people are involved.
There's a big clue, though. There's a piece of paper that Rosemary reads, and the words say, "I can no longer associate myself."
Yep.
Right?
Yep. This person.
Like the thing.
Yeah, this person, Miss Gardenia, is part of what's going on in here, but they had to rid themselves of her.
She was creating a problem.
She was creating a problem.
That problem was.
That is maybe
creating a problem.
That may be the best part of Apartment 7A is that you find out why. But the point, she's gone.
That stuff is not written by anyone associated with this movie.
No.
So I wouldn't even discount that. Like the movie itself is letting us know that.
The novel. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And so and
that
like
is your first clue that there's something not right about this place. Yeah.
Yes.
Besides the Marcados and the Trench Sisters.
Marcados and the Trench Sisters?
The Marcado and the Trench Sisters that Hutch tells them about. Like there's a history of witchcraft.
And he gives them the whole history of the building. Right. Yes.
Yeah, because Hutch knows everything there is to be known about everything, I think.
Well, I mean,
because he's Dr. Zayas.
I think he tells them that after they look at the apartment. But yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So they
I write books for boys, and I'm trying to spook boys in books, and I know
I know when things are spooky. Yeah.
I know when things are spooky.
I love that.
City, that's spooky.
There are descriptions of people that are fascinating in this. Writing books for boys.
Yeah.
The way that, I mean, like...
It's like Hardy Boys or...
right, but I mean...
right?
Like but like... Yeah, but I mean, but like it's... There are ways that Rosemary talks that feels programmed, if that makes sense. Like my favorite line in the movie is how she describes her own husband's career.
Yes.
That she says multiple times.
That feels so authentic.
And it's like, it just, I don't know. It feels like...
Because yes, she's gone to parties.
Yes.
And she's constantly like, as his wife, she's like, so what does your husband do? She gets asked that all the time.
Yeah.
So she's constantly having to like recite his credits, right? To talk about like what he's done and what he's accomplished. It's part of the package, right? Yeah. But it's also like it's hammering home that patriarchal aspect of it. It's not about what Rosemary does or can do or who she is. It's about what her husband does. So it's like, yeah, you're right. It is a programmed robotic response because she's had to answer that question 100 times.
Yeah. And then on top of that, she even has that kind of attitude towards just talking about her friend.
Yeah.
Hutch. Oh, he writes books for boys. Weird thing to say. But she, it's like, he writes books for boys.
I don't know that that's weird though, given the time frame.
Maybe not, but I mean, but like it is, I don't know. It's just, it feels like a weird genre. even then, where it'd be like, because the first thing I thought of was, oh, did he write for Highlights magazine? It's like
I think like Hardy Boys
Club?
and what?
Sure, yeah,
Boys Club. Talking about Boys Club. Sorry,
but it also it's that old timey way of describing something that makes it sound. There is a kind of a grossness to it.
Yeah, fair.
I mean, because it's like, what do you mean anyway, I don't know. That's a whole other Roman Polanski thing.
Yeah, kind of is. And I can see it. I think that maybe that's something that feels a little creepier now than it did then. Even.
Sure. And
trust touch, right?
Certainly back then, if he was because even though he did have children, we meet later, you don't get the impression that he is necessarily coded straight.
No, and he lives alone.
He's too educated.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And too well put together. Back then, that would have been signs. You lived alone, you're too educated, and you're too well dressed. Probably gay.
But it's like it's such a sigh of relief. Like later, when he recognizes that something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's like this a huge weight off of the audience's shoulder for just a moment, at least, to where like she is being believed, even if she doesn't know what's wrong with her. He knows something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that gets to the point when she's not even looking healthy anymore.
No.
But anyway, so we meet some. Right. So they move in.
Yes.
And we get a little bit of montage action of them making it a home. People come in to wallpaper the place, and yeah.
Also, real quick, we should mention one of the key things that Hutch says to them is that there was a dead infant wrapped in newspaper in the basement at one point.
Yes.
That's really important because that thing that plants in your head makes you think her fate is going to be one thing rather than the other, right?
Right.
You believe what she believes rather than what is ultimately going to happen.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, that is really, I always forget about that.
Yeah.
A specific piece of information. But anyway, what we end up, this is when we meet Terry. Now, Terry is in both Terry and Rosemary are in the laundry basement. That's what I'm calling it, the laundry basement.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a basement. It's a boiler room with just one set of washer dryer. But anyway,
that's going to get back. There's going to be a lot of people waiting to do laundry. Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, but
most of these people get dry cleaning, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Rosemary is constantly
they dry clean their tidy whities. Everything.
Sure. If you're rich enough, you're not down there in the laundry basement.
Laundry basement.
John D. Rockefeller ain't washing his tights down there.
Hey, anyway, our laundry was in our basement in New York.
They could have laundry service, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. But anyway, so so Rosemary's constantly looking at this girl. And sneaking glance, and eventually the girl's like, "Hey, can I help you?" Sort of thing. It's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were Victoria Vetri, the actress." And she says, "I hear that a lot because it is Victoria.
Her, right?
It is her under a different stage name."
That's wild.
Yeah, because in this she is listed as Angela Dorian, but it's actually Victoria Vetri. Now, I gotta talk a brief bit about Victoria Vetri because this is an interesting character. So Victoria Vetri was in a few things. She was, mostly like pretty, she was the kind of classic 60s pretty girl. At one point, right around the time that this movie was released, there was an episode of Star Trek in which she was constantly misidentified as a bit character. Like the episode was Assignment Earth. And Gary Seven always was carrying around a black cat that turned into a black-haired woman. And everybody thought that was Victoria Vetri, to the point where Victoria Vetri would get shitty about this. And it's like, that is not me. Whoever it is sure does look like Victoria Vetri. But what I know her best from is not that Star Trek episode, is that she was one of the protagonists in Invasion of the Bee Girls.
I knew it.
One of the all-time great guilty pleasure movies. One of Roger Ebert's favorite guilty pleasure movies. But her life takes an interesting turn in her golden years. She gets arrested for attempted murder of her husband, does not plead guilty, eventually pleads no contest when it gets knocked down to a second degree manslaughter, I think. And she ended up spending 7 years in prison, like in real prison, to be released at the age of 73 years old.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like, she's like 78, 79 now, but yeah, it's like, her life took a turn, man. I mean, so it's, yeah. But yeah, it is funny where Rosemary thinks she looks like the actress who actually is playing that part. That's amazing.
I knew it just by the way it was delivered. I'm like, that's got to be her.
Huh.
This is like a joke.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing because it's not like Victoria.
Really interesting.
It's not like Victoria Vetri is like Bridget Bardot or Marilyn Monroe in terms of like somebody you would instantly think of somebody looks like, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's good
funny.
stuff.
That's really good stuff. Yeah. Huh.
It makes me wonder if that was written on the spot.
Probably, yeah. It feels like an ad lib or
yeah. It's like we got to
say this real quick.
Yeah, we got to figure out some sort of icebreaker here.
I feel like Roman, being from Europe, wouldn't have been privy to that sort of thing. It probably maybe was something that came up with in conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it legit. Maybe it legit happened. Maybe Mia Farrow knew this other actress, and they're like, we need to put that in the movie.
Yeah.
That could be
well,
too. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, because Victoria Vetri's most famous two roles come after this movie. There's When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth.
Oh, yeah.
And Invasion of the Bee Girls. Those were her follow-ups to this movie. So it's
those are her most famous with time, though. At the time, you don't know who would have known her from.
Sure. I mean, yeah, because she had been on TV, she'd been in some movies, but it's like.
But what's important about her, she is living with the Castevets.
Yeah.
Minnie and Roman Castevet, and they are taking care of her. Apparently, they took her off the street, right? She was a drug addict. They took her off the street, reformed her, made her life better, and apparently gave her this charm that smells like shit.
Saved her life, according to
right. Yeah. And that's important because obviously the Castevets are like the driving force behind everything in this movie, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of tell early, even if you don't know, just by the way that they are. You know, you got that old, rich, astute man who's like, blah, blah, blah.
He's been everywhere. Name a place. He's been there.
Hey, I've been there.
Yep. He's into Dubrovnik. I can't hear him right now, but I can't hear you. You're into Dubrovnik. That's my favorite line in the movie. But yeah, she is staying with them. They become fast acquaintances. I won't say friends, but they're gonna do their laundry together now, like because the basement is spoopy, and
yeah.
That's short-lived.
I mean, I swear to God, Freddy Krueger's popping out of that basement somewhere along the way.
Probably,
like,
yeah.
I mean, that is...
You kind of get the sense that there's going to be a couple more, like, laundry meetings, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, this is her girlfriend. They're going to go out to lunch.
And then all of a sudden, she's going to disappear. Not, like, immediately. There's something kind of jarring about that, about how it's like she just met her, and now she's dead. And that lends a lot of credence to, well, she didn't seem that upset. She seemed to really care for you, the Castevets, right? When they find out that she killed herself, and of course, like Minnie kind of feigns surprise. Maybe it is a little bit surprise, but she's like, oh, I can't believe it, you know.
Well, and what's Roman's like, she must have been cleaning the windows and oh no, that's Minnie that says that. But he's like, she was so happy.
Yeah, and Roman's like, she wasn't cleaning windows at midnight.
Right.
She's like, well,
Right.
maybe she was. By the way, Ruth Gordon, holy shit.
Fucking
Well, she won an
great,
Oscar
man.
for this.
Yes, she did.
Yes,
she
did.
should win
Did
an
she-
Oscar this year for
Did
this.
she win an Oscar for Harold and Maude a few years later? Because she's fucking great. She's so good.
She's fantastic in this. Steph and I, like, again, being the first time, I think she saw it in the past, like many years ago, but we were like, that woman, whenever she's on screen, crazy as she is like, you cannot take your eyes off
She's
what
amazing.
she's doing. Even like
She's
her
amazing.
physical acting with the glasses, like how she's always like putting them down or putting them up, or like everything she does in this movie is like, that's a crazy New York lady who probably has a sordid past.
When she, and by the way, no, she was not even nominated for Harold and Maude.
Oh, my goodness.
She was nominated for Inside Daisy Clover 3 years before this one.
Interesting.
But
Well, her and Sidney Blackmer go way back. Almost like Sidney Blackmer does go back to the silent era. I'm not sure if Ruth Gordon.
oh, she does.
1915, I think, was
Yeah,
her first movie.
she also has
crazy.
3 Best Original Screenplay Oscar nominations: 47, 50, and 52.
Wow. I mean, icons, right? These are people that, people who watch this movie now don't recognize those characters. People who watch this movie in 1968 do, right? They know who these people are. At least the more seasoned filmgoers do.
I think over time I've probably seen a lot of these people in movies, because even the periphery folks that are in the room at the end of the movie, I'm like, I recognize that guy. I recognize that person. Like, I'd seen them before. Like,
Yeah, well, the 3 of us would certainly be aware of who the doctor, not just Charles Grodin, obviously Charles Grodin, but Ralph Bellamy is the
oh yeah.
from Trading
Trading
Places,
Places.
from the
Yeah,
Wolfman. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, there's another long serving actor,
I
What
forget
is-
what is his name in Trading Places, because Steph said it like immediately.
Randolph Duke.
She's like, is that Randolph? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, yeah, you've got,
And he's
like,
bearded in this too, which is, you don't normally see him like that. Yeah.
Right.
Mrs. Gilmore is Sarah Hope Summers, who was on the Andy Griffith Show for years, right? She was always the cranky lady. in
Yeah.
that. You've got Emmeline Henry is in this movie. She's freaking I Dream of Jeannie, right? It's like, yeah, there are those faces that absolutely you recognize.
And the voice of Dr. Zayas.
The voice.
Oh my God.
I mean, the moment Hutch starts talking, it's like, there he is. It's like, if you're not looking at the screen, it's like, there he is. Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, well, I'll talk about Tony Curtis when we get there, but that's an interesting production story.
Donald Baumgart.
Oh, by the way, Diego, the elevator man, you know who Derville Martin is? He's the director of Dolomite,
Oh shit! Yeah,
who
That's crazy.
that is
who Arsenio Hall plays in Dolomite's My Name.
that's awesome. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, because
Wow.
in that, like, the whole thing was he was a seasoned and serious actor,
Right.
and now he's
That's-
directing Dolomite.
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
So yeah, this movie is full of, like, even down to the bit doctor, who wasn't famous then, right? But obviously this movie attracted talent because Charles Grodin went on to a fucking amazing career for himself.
Yeah, there was a story about that. Somebody brought him to Polanski's attention. I forget who it was.
He does the most Charles Grodin thing ever, though, when she's spilling her guts and he's just staring at her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
his little I don't know how to explain it. He, like, kind of crunches his eyes a little bit.
yeah, it's like you can tell. It's like he doesn't believe the literal words that she's saying. Now he ends up fooling us all by saying, "I do know that there's crazy people in New York."
Yeah,
but like,
he kind of sells it, right? Yeah.
yeah, but at first it's like he's doing the most Charles Grodin thing ever, which is just staring blankly back at her.
Fucking Charles Grodin.
Anyway, so we think that Terry is going to be besties with Rosemary, but then Rosemary and Guy, John Cassavetes, which is John Cassavetes. It's like that's a pretty big hitter too.
Oh yeah, I mean totally. It was originally going to be was it Robert Redford? I think. was who. Yes, I think it was. It was Robert Redford who Polanski wanted. So this is kind of a funny thing. Polanski kind of got suckered into this movie by Robert Evans because Robert Evans wanted him to direct it. He knew Polanski was into skiing, and he was like, I gotta get Polanski on the hook. So he told him he had this script called Downhill Racer.
Oh yeah,
that would be a great fit. But Downhill Racer was pretty much already a done deal. It was going to be Robert Redford, and I forget who was already directing. I think Michael Ritchie. That was kind of already a done deal. And Polanski wanted Robert Redford for Rosemary's Baby, but Evans was like, oh my God, I've created this web of deceit, because he knew that he wasn't going to get Robert Redford because Robert Redford was into Downhill Racer. But then Polanski wasn't really taking the meeting for anything other than Downhill Racer, but that was already a whole set thing. So Robert Evans said to Polanski, he's like, look, I kind of called you in here on false pretenses. There is no Downhill Racer. That's kind of like a done deal. But please read this. Read Rosemary's Baby. And if you don't like it and you don't want to do it, I'll pay for your next ski trip. And Polanski read it, and he was like, yes, I love it. I'll do it. But it's kind of funny. Like there was this moment, apparently, according to Robert Evans, there was a moment where he did not want Robert Redford and Polanski to meet because they had back-to-back meetings. So he was trying to get Redford out the door before Polanski came in because it would blow up the whole fucking thing.
Well, this could have also been because then after Redford, it shows here Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
That could have been interesting.
As Guy Woodhouse?
Yeah. Yeah, because
he's too creepy.
Maybe
well,
not back, not then, not in 1968, but like, I mean, once you've seen him in Witches of Eastwick, he could have played the devil that impregnates.
He's like, eat
Rosemary.
your chocolate mousse, Rosemary.
Mouse, eat your chocolate.
Eat your mouse.
I think it worked out for the best because Cassavetes is he plays it so straight.
He's smarmy at times too.
Yeah, I mean he could go either way, right? You don't trust him, but you're like, but he seems so normal, right?
You can see him Dick Van Dyking and tripping over shit too, kind of.
Makes sense. He just doesn't seem that imposing.
He's not threatening, really.
Yeah,
he can be emotionally distant, but he's not threatening.
Right.
Okay, so Guy Woodhouse, I know you guys were just talking about him, but he's a self-centered dude. He's not a bad guy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
well, he's an actor, right? Like
ultimately he is a bad guy, but he doesn't.
But he's not.
Like a bad guy.
When you go into this scenario, when they arrive at this apartment, they have for all intents and purposes, a happy marriage. He wants to take care of his wife. He's not a bad dude.
Yeah.
Right. Things change, obviously, and yes, he's a fucking bad dude. But I meant like at the start of it.
Sure.
So you kind of have to see him unravel. Unravel might be the wrong word, but you see his progression from the guy who loves his wife to I'm covering something up to I'm part of this fucking thing now.
Yeah.
You know, like you see that progression with him.
And the movie does a smart thing. The script does a smart thing by not making it obvious how desperate he is, right? Like you can get a sense of it. He's weary about the cost of the apartment.
You can connect it, right?
He's like, I don't have enough. I don't have this role. I lost it to what was his name, Baumgart. You could get this sense from him that he's like things are unraveling, but he is holding it together. You don't know how bad it really is, at least not overtly. But yes, like you said, Chuck, you can put it together. Yeah.
And that's what's great about it. You do kind of, you have the pieces of information to, not that anyone should ever do this, but you can say, okay, I understand why.
You can understand why. Yes. And that's important. Like understanding is not being complicit or not forgiving someone for something.
Sure.
They do. Right. Yes.
Sure. It's, because like, we're getting pretty close to the time where the Woodhouses are meeting the Cassavetes, and what's the dangerous combination that happens here is when these two couples come together, Guy is a combination of desperate for missing out on a role and wooed by somebody being very complimentary of his work.
Oh yeah, it's like, so Guy is the one that is not wanting to go. He doesn't even want to go there. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll fucking do it.
And he says the one thing that it's like, he knows what's up. He's like, once you start doing things with them, we will never get rid of them. God, did they not get rid of them?
It's like when people ask me if I'm friends with any of my neighbors, this is my response as to why not. Like, once you become friends with them, either things go to shit or you cannot. You're in bed now. You live next to them. It's like, yeah.
You're the first place they go when they need anything.
And I don't want to be like a curmudgeon or anything, but I'd rather my neighbors be my neighbors.
Yeah. It's like, I'll be friendly, but I don't know if I can, I don't know if I'm going to.
Yeah. 100%. But as it happens,
which is funny because one of your neighbors is your brother, so that's kind of weird.
I don't like him. I don't like him.
You're stuck with him.
No, we hang out occasionally, but not as often as you'd think for living right across the street. Sorry, John, I love you, brother. Anyway, Roman Castevet either knows stuff or he did his research, because he's able to get his claws into Guy like immediately and switches that idea of, I don't even want to go there, into, I'm going back tomorrow night.
Yeah. Well, Jason, you had just stepped away. I had said that when the time these two couples come together, you have Guy, who's a combination of desperate because he lost the role, and you have a guy in Roman Castevet who says very complimentary things about his work.
Right. Oh, yes.
That's a dangerous combination at that point.
It's another type of, it's not gaslighting in a sense, but it's placating, right?
It's sweet talking.
Roman knows what he's doing. Yeah. Roman knows exactly.
Roman has a silver tongue. I mean, because he's also the one who's trying to also pull Minnie back at times, which he knows. I mean, it's all an act, right? But like, there are times where he's like, where it seems like he's the like one that you want to be around.
Minnie's the dog on the leash.
Yeah.
She's the dog on the leash that makes you trust the leash holder.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? And the leash holder is the real dangerous one. Not that Minnie isn't dangerous, but
Guy didn't want to go over there. He warned against it. It was like they're just gonna be the annoying neighbor if we.
That's what we were just talking about.
But then it's like, oh, the next. As it turns out, that night, Guy is like, I think I'm going to go back over there tomorrow.
Yep.
And Rosemary's like, really? I don't think I'm going to join you.
I don't want any part of this.
Not great about it.
It's like, it's kind of neat that Minnie has the spice garden in her window. That's kind of, she would like to have one of those. But there is something that she says in that scene. I can't remember what it is, but Rosemary picks up immediately. Minnie is not who she presents herself. And because then it's like, because she just, anyway,
there's some kind of trust issues that she has.
Yeah.
There's a classic progression of Guy where you have controlling narcissistic relationships, right? Where they sequester you from your friends. They control your relationship. They steer you to the people they want you to be around, or around no people, right? Only themselves. And that's what Guy starts doing here. A guy starts manipulating all of Rosemary's interactions with the outside world, and it all happens to be with the Castevets and their friends. And it's like, you look at this in 2024 terms, and it's so obvious, right? We've seen these signs now. We understand when a relationship is being manipulated. But in 1968, it's not as obvious, right? And it's so profound to me. So profound to me that this is happening in this movie, and that it's being presented by by all accounts, a person in Polanski who did the same thing to Sharon Tate, right?
He understands. I mean, it makes sense. It's done so well in this movie, right?
He also understands it so well, but isn't afraid to like show it for what it is. It's weird. It's just weird to me.
There's probably guilt in the presentation. I don't know Roman Polanski.
But I mean, at this point they were married, but they weren't. Obviously, what happened with the
next year
hadn't happened. Yeah,
next year. Yeah.
But
this year, the year it's released.
But from the accounts of a lot of their
No,
friends,
it was 69.
He treated,
and this was released in 68,
like
right?
almost like a child, right? Like he treated Sharon like a child. Like he didn't treat her like an equal, but he doted on her. He loved her, but he almost treated her like a possession, which is what most narcissists do in a relationship. And that's what's happening here. Like there's this transformation of Guy into this narcissistic, controlling, gaslighting husband. And it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Oh, yeah. Eat your moose.
Yeah.
Eat your moose.
Yeah, I threw the book away. I mean, it's fuck, you know? Yeah.
So they were talking about...
after the was with her friends and to say I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, those fucking bitches are trying to control you. It's like, dude,
right?
Yeah, I'm the one who controls,
right? Because that's when he really goes. That's when he's kind of beyond his redemption. At that point, is that and that's about right at the halfway point of the movie.
I'm sure he's terrified too because he's seen what these people can do, and he actually knows that if he doesn't follow through,
he's in too deep. Yeah,
it's the end for him.
He's going to be tossed out a window.
Yes, he needs to remain useful, and if Rosemary somehow gets off the goods, if Rosemary somehow gets off the hook, then that's his ass. That's your ass.
There is one super duper important thing that happens after the first night that they hang out with the cast of vets. Rosemary comments on the fact that there are no paintings on the wall.
Yes.
There are clean spots where frames used to be, but where'd they go? What's going on there?
Yep.
And Roman's like, I don't know, or not Roman. Guy is like, I don't know, they're weirdos, or whatever. It's like they kind of joke about that a little bit.
He's like, I didn't notice.
Yeah. But like, she's like, that's just very weird, isn't it? And it's like, yeah,
it is weird.
And when you see why they put them away later, makes a lot of sense.
It sure does.
So yeah, the moose knocks her out. I don't know why she needs to be knocked out. I don't understand. Oh yeah, no, I do know why she needs to be knocked out.
So Guy ends up coming home and it's like, I've been a total ass. I've only been thinking about myself. Let's have a baby and we're going to have like this romantic night together.
Yes.
And she's like,
yes. At this point too, I don't know if you mentioned this while I was gone, but his rival for the part has been stricken blind.
Yeah.
And now he has the part, and it's not a great part. It's not a great play, but it's a great part. It's the kind of part that gets you noticed.
You're going to explode from there.
Yeah. So that's pretty important. Like that, obviously there's been this trading of
shirts.
Yes, sure.
Literally, it's
trading
shirts.
of assets. Yeah.
And
there
the thing
was ties. Yes.
Ties.
We find that out later. It's important with the glove too.
Yep.
There's also he plays this pretty well because at first you think he really does like care that even though it's his rival, it is a friend who's like he seems disturbed by what happened. He got
disturbed.
Yeah.
But it's not the reason, because like you think, he thinks this is just an unfortunate way of him getting the role. But really, he's disturbed because he knows that there was a power behind it.
Exactly.
He's guilty. He feels guilty.
He feels guilty.
He didn't know that this was how it's going to go down, but this is how it went down. And he's like, fuck. And that's when he knows, where there's really no turning back, because they could do the same thing to him.
Yeah. So he comes home. He's like, I've been an ass. I've been only thinking about myself. Because they also had the argument at one point too, where she's like, I'm dropping it. It's like, no, you're not. It's like, yes, I'm just going to drop it. And like, there's like a little bickering going on between the two of them for a couple of scenes. He comes home. He's so excited. He gives her roses. He leaves roses everywhere.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's have a baby. And she's like, okay. And then they're going to have this romantic night. They're sitting down for dinner.
My God. Hold on. Even before this, he's like, I even know when to get started.
Oh yeah. He's
tracking her period. Like, that is always a bad sign. That is always a bad sign.
Somebody else did that work for him. Somebody else did that work for him. Yeah.
Yes. But fuck. Right?
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. What? You know, you've been tracking my period? Seriously? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird.
But to her, it's a lovely gesture because she's kind of caught up in the whole idea, right?
She wants a baby. She wants 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wants 3 of them. It's like the way you said that. It's like she wants 3 right now. She like call out for delivery. I want 3 babies.
She's almost been begging to start a family because all of her other siblings have children. She's the only one who doesn't.
Which is interesting because all of her friends seem to be very modern, non like homemaker women.
But we don't also really know. This is a little bit.
Well, we don't really know, but we get
to play. Right? Yeah, because it comes out in that first dinner that she was raised Catholic and she's not comfortable with them talking badly about the Pope. And it makes sense because if her family's Catholic, they're all having babies. Like, this is a guilt that's been put upon her. This is an expectation that's been put upon her.
Well, also, she's from Omaha. Was that where she said she's from?
I'm not
sure.
So
Peyton Manning told me.
Wherever it is, I know Roman's been there.
Yes, for sure.
I thought it was Omaha and Baltimore where they were from.
Wherever.
But the point, what I was trying to say about like her friends are all cosmopolitan. She does seem very small town.
Yes.
So there are different ways that she approaches this type of stuff.
Well, she's naive.
Yeah, that too.
She's very naive in a lot of things in this movie. Yeah, where you in that scene where she has the party, it really comes crashing down. Like, their friends are like, "Whoa!"
Right?
Like, and you are naive even for 1968. Like, whoa!
Right? Yeah. Although technically it does take place in 1965, 66.
Sure, whatever.
So, but
it's like they're just like, none of this smells right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because like they do seem to be her friends seem to be kind of on the front end of a feminist movement, whereas Rosemary's I just want to be the housewife and it's like, I'm not there yet, but I kind of want to be the housewife. I kind of want to have kids. Exactly. You know, it's like she's living an older version of an idealized existence.
Absolutely.
Yep. So anyway, they're sitting down for their big romantic dinner and a knock on the door and Rosemary's like, fuck. It's like, please go away. Please go away. Please go away. and she does. Like, Minnie does go away, but comes back with 2 gigantic friggin' like
crocs.
Yeah, crocs of chocolate mousse. To which, Guy is like gobbling it up. And she's like, there's a chalky undertaste. Like, there's no undertaste. Just eat it. It's like, you're being rude. And it's like, Jesus Christ, dude. It's like, boy, that's really going to help with this whole baby making.
Guys being a guy.
Yeah. It's like nothing gets a woman ready for baby making than yelling at her over the neighbor's chocolate mousse.
It doesn't matter though. Like,
in the end, it doesn't matter because it's drugged.
They're going to knock her out and rape her. Like,
right.
The ruse, the yelling does not matter.
Right.
She is like, go ahead.
No, it's like she does try to hide it because she just doesn't want to fight with him anymore. And so she pretends like she ate it, but she ate enough.
Definitely ate enough. God, I shudder to think what would have happened if she ate the whole damn thing.
Well, she wouldn't have ever realized anything was going on, I think.
Right. But she does. So she gets knocked out and they have their, like, it's like a rape ritual. And you do kind of see a bestial creature a little bit. So you're unsure who's actually bedding her down. You know, the group is around her. It's almost like the midsummer scenes or like, it's been copied like many times after this, right?
Sure.
That group kind of thing. But yeah, this is
All the colors of the dark comes to mind a little bit here.
Oh, that too. Yeah. But if you didn't know, like if you're skeptical at all, the people are in the room with her, right? Like, well,
she says it.
Yes.
She literally, this is really happening, which is a weird line, but it reads like a book. Like, I'm sure that was a thought in the book.
Thought,
exactly.
Yeah.
But it works so well because that's the clip that they show in every one of those countdowns.
It's iconic, man. Yeah.
In fact, that may have even been on the poster or on a version of the poster. This is no dream. This is really happening. Anyway, continue. Chuck,
but yeah, you're fine. She gets gang raped, for lack of a better term, I think, or just raped by the devil.
Raped by the devil, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just Goat Man. Yeah.
Yeah. Just Goat Man. Next morning, she wakes up. She's got scratches in her arm,
on her back, everywhere.
Yeah. Like all on the side of her back and her arm. And it's really like it's dismissed by Guy when he's like, sorry, I raped you.
Yeah, it's pretty so weird because he's like, I didn't want to miss baby night. Yeah. And she's like, there's more than one day here.
Yeah. But that's part of that.
And he's like chuckling about it. It's gross.
Yeah, she gives up on it shortly after because at the time, like I think I mentioned earlier, there was no law against raping your wife, which is fucking insane to me. But there was no law against it.
Nope.
Well, at least not in the 1960s. You would think, okay, maybe in 1785 there was no law about that.
No, that's what I'm saying. Any modern time, like industrial age on, I would expect people to be a little more caring about women. Obviously, we forget. And people forget often what people were still suffering like 30, 40 years ago and still today, right? Like, that's our problem.
I mean, this is the weird thing about the 60s and how much things change in a short period of time. My mother was like 25 years old before black people could vote for president, the 1920, I think was when suffrage. But like my mother was well into, both my mother and father were well into their adult years before it was okay for biracial, specifically black and white relationships.
Yep. And that's in most states.
That's weird, man.
It is weird, and it really like explains a lot of things because that generation is largely still alive.
Yeah.
And largely for the first 25 years of their life, they were hearing something that they have progressed. And I'm not talking about your parents.
No. Yeah.
I
know
mean in general.
Yeah.
Like it progressively told their kids who have told their kids, like we're like one generation away. It feels like maybe from some kind of different progress, but I don't want to go there right now.
Sure. I mean, no, I like I always say, who knows what the next big social thing is? It going to be, having a robot girlfriend or an AI girlfriend or something, or whatever, but like you don't know.
Stuff we still need to deal with.
I know.
I think our kids, my kid, like I say, our kids, like the kids that we would be having now.
You're talking about Zoomers and alphas. Yeah.
They're the ones that might actually make a change. We'll see.
I mean, there are still millions of women who vote against their best interest every
Yes, absolutely. But that is like kind of a topic here to this movie, right? Like that matters, like women's rights and women's autonomy.
Yeah,
is a huge thing in this movie. Like
you don't think that JD Vance hasn't circled Baby Day on the calendar?
Oh God!
Fucking Christ! I bet he does.
God.
Everybody vote next week. God damn it.
I don't want to go there.
Please vote.
Anyway. They're all weirdos. God damn it. Anyway, back to the weirdos of this movie. And I say that affectionately when it comes to Ruth Gordon because she's so amazing in this movie.
She is.
I fucking love her in this movie.
Really amazing.
She's perfect because she is that late, like, anyone would meet that lady in New York.
Yes.
Like you can meet her today.
She's everybody's mom.
That's what I'm saying. Like maybe not in this city, maybe not in Indianapolis or Midwest or California, but that's like a consummate Northeastern woman. Like I knew a lot of them when I was a kid.
Totally. Yep.
Well, and the great thing about her is that every time she comes on screen, you're just waiting for what's coming out of her mouth.
Yeah, she's
like
awesome.
that's how you win an Oscar, you know?
Yeah.
It's like just the moment she comes into a scene, your focus shifts immediately.
She dominates every scene she's in. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Because she is a person that you would be annoyed by. And it's weird.
Oh yeah, you're glad that you have
the annoying person in this movie,
because there's a layer separating you from it, right? Yeah. You're not directly dealing with it; you're just watching it.
Yeah. Sure. So she gets pregnant. They find out that she's pregnant. It's a big deal. She goes to her doctor, Charles Grodin, and then this is when Roman and Minnie are like, we know a better doctor. And we can get him for pennies on the dollar, basically, because, he's the best doctor in the city, but we know him, so you can have him. And she goes, even though she is experiencing a little bit of, she's been kind of distrustful almost this whole time. But Roman or Guy has not been. And the idea that the best doctor in the city can help her appeals to her, even though it feels a little weird to her.
This is also like Guy before this. It's like, I know this is weird, but I just really want to tell Minnie and Roman right now.
Oh my God, it's so weird.
It's like, oh my God, that's like the biggest red flag. And it's like, no, Rosemary, run.
Yeah, go. Keep seeing Charles Grodin
like,
and his weird mustache.
Why is he so attached to them? And then she tries to explain it later as he has parental issues, right? He never really had a good relationship with his parents, so he's replacing his parents with them, which is
okay. I mean, that's a good enough. Yeah. That's a good enough reason to say okay, if it means a harmonious relationship on the 7th floor of the Brantford.
My note when he said that though was like, getting weird, dude.
Getting weird, guy. But really, like, celebrate with your wife for a night.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Like, wait until the morning. Like, it is like very poorly timed.
It's weird.
Yeah. I will say that the first time we see, the only time we see them, I think, actually having a sex together
was the first.
I say it exactly that
when they moved into the apartment.
When they moved into I say it exactly like that because it is so barely romantic.
Yeah.
They undress themselves. There's no hoopla to it. They're just like, I guess it's just, it's like, I guess it's wifely and husbandly duties tonight, and it's just like a shrugged off. So that's why I say it's not really lovemaking, it's having a sex.
Having a sex. I hope she didn't pay for it. Anyway, around this time, Rosemary is losing weight. She looks sick as fuck, and this is when Hutch comes around. And I'll go through this quickly because we kind of talked about it. But
she's
he notices
drinking a daily drink from
Minnie.
From Minnie, yeah.
It looks like
has somehow like said is fine, which is
it looks like a chocolate chip cookie dough shake.
It does,
and she explains it away as they want fresh ingredients. They don't pills that sit on a shelf might go bad. Right. This is what she's telling Hutch, and Hutch is like, no, something's fucking wrong.
It's weird. Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, Guy shows up with his makeup on, like he's been alerted there's a weirdo in your apartment. You need to get home and get rid of him. Kind of arrival.
Yes. Because he just shows up the middle of the day. Yeah.
He's still wearing his makeup from the set and whatever, what have you. So it's clearly like he's been called back to stop whatever the fuck is going on.
Yep.
Then we find out that Hutch has lost his glove. And you haven't been really told this yet, but if you're paying attention, you realize, the fact that his glove is gone means somebody has possession of it and is going to put some shit on him.
Yep.
Put some bad juju on it
because Roman had met him and is like, oh, this guy's too smart. We need to fuck.
Oh yeah, Roman's the first person to like have his shit's not right detector go off and show up. And I will say, Roman and Hutch in that scene it's like that's the battle of wills. I wish the rest of the movie was. In some way, like I want another version of this movie where the two of them have to battle it out with their wits.
Wits, the battle of wits. It's called The Odd Couple with Tony Randall or Tony Curtis. Which one is in that?
Tony Randall.
Thank you.
I got a couple things here. So
or Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
Yeah. Saperstein tells her not to read books, right?
Yeah.
Don't educate yourself.
Don't talk to your friends. They don't know nothing.
Again, it's this like narcissistic isolation, right? And it's this controlling of men over women, right? You will listen to only what we say, right? Your independent study is invalid. Your instincts are invalid. Your intuition isn't valid, right? He's like grooming her for that. That you should not feel the way you think you feel. You should only feel the way I tell you to. Because
it's under the guise of I know what's best. I'm the best fucking doctor in the city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a slimier appeal to authority in the sense that it's not appealing to an authority that is a collected idea of this is what's best in these scenarios, but it's an appeal to authority of a single person, which makes it slimier.
Yes. And then she cuts her hair.
Oh God, yes.
I hope she didn't pay for it.
So it's Vidal Sassoon.
Oh God, yeah. I went to Vidal Sassoon. She's so proud of that.
This to me like screams trauma response.
No, that she got all of her hair cut off. That she's not dealing with things that well.
It's
sure.
Trauma response, and like she doesn't even know or understand what her trauma is, right? But she's been raped. I don't know if anything's been written about that, but man, that's like it just screams trauma response to me.
Well, and the fact though, also, it's like there's that underneath, which I do agree with you that there's certainly a read there that's valid. But it also just kind of comes back to that whole idea of like, why'd you get your hair cut? That doesn't look good. I hate it. I don't like. It's like, dude,
she can't do anything for herself.
Right, and it's like, I mean, come on. She looks pretty good with the short hair. Like she does. I mean, she's still sickly looking. Yeah, it's like
you look great, but your haircut sucks.
Exactly. It's like, and it's
Hutch. That's the thing. Like when Hutch comes by, he's not critiquing her haircut. He's like, you just look sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You should not be losing weight. And
because
she's been told that she will gain weight later.
Right.
Lose it at first and gain weight later.
Because he does say that there's something not right about her. And she's like, oh, I went to Vidal. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
That's not, it's like Dr. Zayas coming in for the W here.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And she mentions the tannis root because of the charm.
Yeah.
It's the charm.
Yes. It's in her drink. It's in her drink.
Yeah. And it's like tannis root. And he writes books for boys. So he's got some knowledge of how witchy stuff, apparently.
He knows about yanking roots.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Yikes.
I didn't mean that the way you're taking it.
That's the way my brain worked.
I don't know how that was not supposed to go that direction.
Well, it sounded like Jason thought he was yanking other roots. I meant his own roots.
Okay. Well, anyway, I don't know how that was supposed to.
Yikes. But he's like, his alarm bells are ringing. And then, yes, we talked about, Guy coming back and all that and getting the.
Well, I was sitting there thinking, it's like, wait, tannis root, is that the same thing as Tana leaves? The things you're supposed to give to Karis the mummy? It's like, no, those are two different things, but still, it doesn't sound good.
They were made up for the book.
Yes, they were, but
in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. But Tana leaves, you have to give 9, no more, no less, to awaken Karis the mummy. Because if you give him too much, he's uncontrollable.
Oh. Good to know.
So again, TAN something is bad. That's all I know. And so the moment I heard Tannis was like, that's not going to be good.
I mean, yeah, you're right.
Saying.
I'm
just using my monster knowledge. I don't write books for boys, but I know monsters.
We have a New Year's Eve party.
Yes.
Somebody toasts 1966, year 1. It's like, ooh. That's
oh yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Year one.
They're resetting the calendar.
They're resetting the calendar. So they say it again later in the last scene. But yeah, it's like the calendar. The calendar is based on the birth of Christ, right? BC, AD, and they're resetting the calendar.
Well, it's not BC anymore. Aren't you aware of that? It's BCE now.
Or whatever.
Anyway, I don't get it either. BC.
Before Christ emerged.
But year one means like it's now the year of Satan, right?
Gotcha.
We're in the new calendar. Yeah.
That is something else.
I wanted you to explain it for the other people listening.
That does come up again in Apartment 7A, and it's really kind of it is good when they say this is year one, and everybody cheers. Anyway,
but around this time now, we have Hutch gets stricken sick.
Falls into a mysterious coma.
Rosemary's supposed to meet him. He wants frantically to meet her. He's going to meet. She's going to meet him downtown, in Times Square somewhere, like not very far from Radio City Music Hall.
In front of the building.
Yeah,
some building.
The Life and
Time Life. It's the Time Life.
Time and Life building. Yes.
At 11 a.m.
And he doesn't show up, but she does run into Minnie.
Of course.
Creepy. Of course she does.
And she's like, I'm here Christmas shopping. Let's go.
I got you a drink for you. Drink up.
Yeah, let's go. And he's like, aren't you Christmas shopping? Can Christmas shop later.
I got 2 weeks to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's like, okay, weird. But then she finds out later, she gets a phone call from Hutch's...
It's like his assistant or his editor or something. Yeah.
It says that he's
secretary or something. Yeah.
in a coma and not doing so hot. And then you have the party. Rosemary decides to throw the party. She throws the party. The people, their friends, try to tell her something's wrong.
Yeah, because she's been in constant pain for 2 months.
Like stabbing pain.
Yeah.
And then...
which are those little devil horns growing into her, I'm guessing. Right?
And then the next day, she all of a sudden, she's like at her wit's end. She's like, I'm going to find another doctor. I'm done with Saperstein. But then she all of a sudden starts feeling better.
Well, but here's something else weird the guy says. It's like, but you'll offend Dr. Saperstein. It's like, who fucking cares?
Yeah, who fucking cares about Saperstein? And she says that to him. She's like, what?
Who cares? It's like, I just want
bullshit.
Yeah.
She's like, what about my feelings?
Yeah.
Is what she says. Yeah.
Yes. It's huge. But then she starts feeling better. And she's like, okay, maybe it's all in my head. It's again, like the gaslighting has it's all paid its dividends for them. Because now she everything that they said is happening. She's feeling better. And she starts to have a normal pregnancy, quote unquote, right? And meanwhile, she never goes see Hutch, which is sad. And then Hutch dies. And she gets...
Yeah, she does never go see Hutch.
And she even says, it's like, oh my goodness, I was so wrapped up in myself.
She started wearing the...
And she started wearing the charm bracelet with the
which would control her mind to make her not go.
She was like almost kind of like, I feel terrible that I never even thought about him and now he's gone. So she goes to the funeral and she meets the woman who she had talked to on the phone that told her that he was sick, and she says, I have a parcel for you. It's something
he was lucid for just a few moments before he died.
And he said, it was imperative that I get this to you.
And the important thing, it's an anagram. Yeah.
So the book is All of Them Witches. It's a book that she was given, and yes, there's a inscription in it that says it's an anagram. The name is an anagram.
So, right? Jovial Senior, tell us about this, and then we'll let Ace Bloke Gruff tell us more.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you're Jovial Senior. That's an anagram for your name.
Oh, it is. Oh, nice. Jovial Senior?
Or Jovial Senior, actually.
Oh, Senior!
Well, I'm just
Sorry, I did the
I'm just trying
anagrams
to move
for us.
this
My
along
bad.
a little bit. Sorry.
No,
Well,
moving along.
what's yours, Chuck?
Cuckoo, eh, mister?
Ooh.
Love it.
Ooh.
And it's MR, mister, not.
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead,
What
Jason.
was? Well, let's move it along. What is the anagram that she discovers? Because I don't.
So
I don't
there's an
actually
important name associated with the Bramford, and that's Marcato.
Marcato.
And Marcato was a Satanist. And he lived there and he did devil shit.
Yep.
And what we find out is that he mysteriously, or he had a son that mysteriously seemed to vanish, more or less.
Right.
They don't know. Nobody knows what happened to the son. Well, that's because Roman Castevet is the son. He's just rearranged the letters in his name, which I kind of find to be brilliant. Because, like the super religious people who think Santa and Satan are the same person because they rearrange letters to make it work. That's what's going on here. Like this is pretty much like no notes, 10 for 10. You did it. It's like they do rearrange letters to hide the devil guy.
Yes.
But anyway, so she discovers that Roman Castevet is an anagram of whatever the son of Marcato was, so that, oh shit, this is the son, and he would be 79 or something like that now. If based on the information in the all of them witches, all of them witches. I want that to be like our band's like spooky themed Halloween album title.
Unfortunately, there's a band called All Them Witches.
Well, I said album, not band.
I mean, but there's already a band called All of Them Witches.
Oh, boo.
So we're screwed there. But she's right. She's right about all of it. She tells Guy about it, and Guy's like, fuck you. And she's like, well, fuck you. I'm leaving. And she gathers her shit. She goes and finds Dr. Grodin, whose name I can't remember, but it's Charles Grodin.
Hill, I think. Dr. Hill.
Yeah, she tells Dr. Hill all his shit. And you start to get a minute sense, oh, fuck, he's part of this whole thing. But he's not. But he's also like, this woman is hysteric. And when he says, I know there's crazy people in New York, he's kind of referencing her.
Yeah.
So he sends her back.
Her downfall is when she says that her doctor is Dr. Saperstein, because he knows Dr. Saperstein, and you get a sense that he respects Dr. Saperstein.
Yes.
Right?
Well, he should because he does have that reputation.
He does, right?
Yes.
But because also it is important to know she does try to go see Saperstein first at one point, and the woman points out that she's wearing
like
the
tannis root. He smells like
and
tannis.
she's like, oh shit.
Yeah, and she pieces out, and that's when it's like the iconic scene in the phone booth. After that is when she tries to call Dr. Hill's office and get connected with Dr. Hill, but she can't go home. She can't have him call in the house, so she's got to stay at the phone booth and wait for him to call. And it's frantic, and it's like,
and there's a guy standing outside of it that could be Saperstein from behind.
right? Who's
but it's William Castle.
Yeah. But it's like
he's there to say, I stuffed this phone booth full of skeletons. They're going to jump out at you.
That's the scene that should have gotten her an Oscar nomination, and it didn't.
Yeah, because she is playing off that she is still on the phone talking to somebody. Good. Yeah, and it's like, and she is just breathless.
She's got the finger on the
but the receiver up to her ear.
Hook, yeah, and waiting for it to ring, and then it does ring. Did
you guys notice there's no loud button on that motherfucking telephone in 1968?
We didn't see the front of the phone.
I want to mention real quickly here, this is the right time to do it, that Mia Farrow was married to Frank Sinatra shortly before this movie. And she took this role, she was cast in this part, she took the part against his wishes because he wanted her to be his wife, not an actress, right?
Right.
So playing into those old patriarchal stereotypes. But she took the role, but then he wanted to cast her in The Detectives, a movie that he was about to shoot, and the Rosemary's Baby was going long in the shooting because Polanski was so meticulous, and it was over like 3 or 4 weeks over budget, not over budget, over schedule. And he said to her, either you quit the movie or I'll divorce you.
Damn.
She went to Robert Evans and said, I need to quit. And Robert Evans says, you can't. It's like, if you quit, you're never going to work in Hollywood again. In fact, if you quit, the Screen Actors Guild won't even let you be in the Detectives because of your breach of contract with us. He was like, but I don't want to scare you. Let's go look at the footage. He showed her an hour of the cut together daily footage. And he's like, look, this is an amazing performance. What you're doing could win you an Academy Award. Don't quit the film. And she decided not to. And Frank Sinatra served her divorce papers on the set of Rosemary's Baby.
What a fucking cockmeister,
Yeah,
that
totally.
guy.
But she stood her ground.
I need an anagram for that fucker. Go ahead.
And she said that from that point forward, the only thing that mattered to her was that that Rosemary's Baby would outgross the Detectives. And it did, like, by a lot.
Beautiful.
She had the last word. She wanted Paramount to put out an ad in Variety that had one page next to each other, one page of Rosemary's Baby's gross and the other page of the Detectives' gross, like next to each other. But Robert Evans says he couldn't go that far because, funny enough, Robert Evans, The Detectives, was also produced at Paramount, but The Detectives was the first story, the first novel that Robert Evans himself had optioned for the movie rights. He actually got his start in the movies by optioning The Detectives at the novel as a film. So he was
That's pretty.
and it just took a long time for it to end up getting to the screen with Frank Sinatra. So he was like very compromised in both sides of the story.
Both of his interests.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that wild.
That is wild for sure.
But I mean, it's like this feminist story, that this parallel.
It's happening on the outside too.
On the outside that this movie is representing. It's just kind of beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, after she does get a call back from the doctor. She has to talk him into meeting her, which he does. And then he's like, have a lay down. I got to do some shit. And what he does, unfortunately, is call Guy and he brings Saperstein. They take Rosemary back to the apartment. And then they just start, they take her back to the apartment and then they just start drugging her.
And they say, play ball or from the things you're saying, we have to put you in a mental hospital, which he very well could have.
Right. She would have been hysterical, right?
Yep.
Hysteria. And she goes into labor on the spot, which is not good for her because they're like, well, if we would have been in the hospital, your baby wouldn't have died, which is what they tell her, that the baby died.
Right.
Sorry.
And no, there's one thing real quick, Guy.
Super hard.
Guy kind of fucks up a little bit here because when she first comes to, he says everything is fine. And it's like the baby's fine, everything is fine. And then when she wakes up again the second time, that's when she fucking what's her name? Laura Louise is sitting there watching over her. Laura Louise goes insane by the end of this movie.
She's a crazy person.
She scares her. So then she brings in Guy and Saperstein. And that's when they said that the baby died. So I think Guy, when he was alone, he fucked up. But then later, it was corrected at that point.
Yeah, he probably didn't know the story, what they were going to tell her, maybe. Or
she probably came too soon.
Or it was his natural elation over them having a baby. But, I don't know, the end of this, she is being drugged continuously, given pills that knock her out.
They're expressing her breast milk.
they're expressing it,
throwing it away. Yeah.
but when she puts a spoon in it, they're like, "Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too dirty." I don't know. So enough science.
Put a spoon in it.
Along with a baby crying somewhere nearby, that her husband says, "Oh yeah, a new couple moved in with a baby," and she's like, "Bullshit."
Yeah.
She goes into the closet and realizes there's a keyhole and a door into the next apartment, and that's why it had been blocked off, presumably after the other woman died. I'm guessing the Cassavetes went in or had someone go in and block it, so she never found this door to their apartment.
Well, I don't know about that.
She never really looked for it because they came into it when she barred the door earlier, right?
They did, but early on though, she does take out the shelves inside there. She's like, "Look, there's shelves in here."
They were already out.
After they had moved in, she opened the closet and found the shelves in there, and then
she put them up.
Yeah, and she put them up. So she had already been kind of messing around in that closet. I think it's the old lady that blocked to keep the Cassavetes out.
Maybe, but she would have had help. She was in her 80s. There's no way she moved that fucking thing on her own.
I don't know. The floor was pretty scratched up.
She might have. Make sure we're
either way, it was blocked up.
And it was her, like, she was specifically, it was something that tipped her off. That's like, wait, I can see through this. It's a keyhole. What is this?
She looked through a keyhole.
Yeah, and then she realized
she's just
that
suspicious as fuck at this point. Like,
yeah, and it's like that leads to the Cassavet house. Why would it go there?
Yep.
Yeah, it's all very odd.
And then she starts seeing the paintings that she saw in her dream, and she's like, "This is not cool." She walks down the hallway, and there's a party going on
with a black bassinet.
Black bassinet, and the year is one, and God is done. Is being chanted. Like, wow. And she's got a knife, and nobody noticed her at first, but then there's some screams, and she ends up dropping the knife, and she's just like, "What the hell is happening?" There's a Japanese guy there taking pictures, of course.
That's the same guy,
and looks.
That's the same Japanese guy from Hamburger the Motion Picture.
Totally. I'm surprised it didn't, like, there wasn't a fart that ignited the whole room and exploded.
No flash.
But she walks up and looks in the bassinet, and she's like, "What have you done to his eyes?" And they're like, "He has his father's eyes."
Yeah,
she's a different father.
Yeah.
Well, and then Guy comes over. It's like, look, they said that if they just had you, we could have our own kids, and that was the deal.
And that you wouldn't be hurt, and technically you weren't. He's gaslighting to the very end. It's so gross. Yeah.
And then
people didn't have mental problems, but like you didn't have pain, like problems with your head. So it didn't matter what she went through emotionally. Right. There's no physical
you're
harm.
Perfectly
there.
fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You were raped by the devil. No big deal. Yeah.
No big deal. You're fine. Look at you. You're great.
But then it gets into, Roman. Roman is like, "Why don't you be a real mother to him, to Adrian? He needs his mother." And she notices that, who is it? That's Laura Louise. Yeah, she's like,
oh God, it's like
she's rocking that carriage like a crazy person.
Yeah, and it's like you're rocking it too hard. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's like,
get her out of here.
And then
she's
Roman
like, get her
says,
out.
She is fucking awful.
And then she like walks by her, like sticks her tongue out at her. It's really weird.
Yeah, devil people are the most childish people. I mean, and also Laura Louise is just the evil.
And so Rosemary goes, oh yeah, well Laura Louise is also like, no, we can't let her hear the baby, right? Like she might do something to the baby, and maybe she will. Who knows?
Well, and Roman's like, no, it's cool.
Let her. Yeah, because he would prefer that Rosemary were on their side and raise the child. And Rosemary looks into the carriage. She rocks it gently, and there's this look in her eye of like maybe love, maybe plotting. You don't really know, but that's how the movie ends. Is will Rosemary raise this baby? Will she not? What will she do next? I think it's an interesting question. I think that it's implied somewhat that she will play ball. I guess in the novel, there's some internal dialogue where she thinks that maybe she, with her good nature and her motherly nature, can prevent Adrian from being evil, right? Like she in some way can like change the path that he might have as the child of the devil or whatever it might be. There's also like a thought that it's supposed to be ambiguous, like maybe it all was just paranoia and postpartum depression, right? And this is like a representation of that. It's interesting. I personally believe it's the child of the devil, and we don't know where it's going to go. She is probably going to play ball to some degree, but we don't know where that's going to go, right?
Yeah, that's where I kind of feel like she's she can play ball while still hoping against hope that she's doing the right things to, like, that she's Jonathan and Martha Kent, and this thing with incredible power can be steered the right way, I think that's, if Adrian is anything like Damien, they're fucked. They are fucked.
Yeah, here's the thing. This is why I like Immaculate so much. 2024 is Immaculate.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a pretty conventional movie, like up until the final act. There were two movies that were almost exactly the same that came out at the same time, First Omen and Immaculate. But I appreciate that Immaculate had the 2024 mentality of, no,
smash that shit.
I'm just gonna fucking kill this thing.
Yes, I'm gonna smash it.
Right. Yeah. And that to me is like it goes against this long-standing idea that the worst sin that a mother can commit is to abandon her children or harm her children, right? There have been men throughout centuries who have abandoned their children, who have harmed their children, abused their children, who
a lot of trips to the gas station to get smokes that never ended.
Never get any repercussions. But if a woman, heaven forbid, were to, put her career first over a child, it's like the worst possible thing you could do. And I appreciate that Immaculate kind of went there in the most extreme way to rebel against that ideal.
The only thing that could have made the end of Immaculate any better is if she drop kicked it after she was done. Just drop kick it
with a karate kick freeze frame, like pancakes.
Pancakes. Yeah, I don't know. The whole nature versus nurture thing is interesting, right? Like, is this child going to end up a certain way because of their circumstances when they were born or because of their DNA? Or can you really impact them versus nurturing them? And I like the end of Immaculate too, as like crazy as it was. I was like, holy shit, she went there. I'm like, she clearly felt that nurturing wasn't an option.
Yeah, it's a statement.
And
well, it is a monster baby too. So it's kind of like there probably isn't a nurturing option.
They never showed the baby. They never showed the baby.
But I thought it was implied that it was monstrous.
I mean,
it's
like
look at his eyes, look at his hands, look at his feet. They do, but they purposefully don't show you the baby, I think, to kind of feed into a little bit more of that ambiguity. Like,
well, no, I'm talking about an Immaculate.
Immaculate, yeah.
Yeah, Immaculate, I thought you at least see like a gross head or back of a head or something.
Pretty sure you do see something, yeah. I don't remember, though.
It's not full on like this is exactly what the baby looks like, but it's...
And the wild thing about Immaculate is that was supposed to be like the Messiah, like the clone of Jesus.
The opposite.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I did like about the First Omen was the fact that it was perpetrated by the Catholic Church in order to stir up like more
people
more,
going back to
more
church.
fanatical. Yeah, church going. Yeah, that was.
And I did like the main father in that, who was doing a pretty darn good Patrick Troughton.
Yeah.
That was good. But anyway,
This is
no, this is a good movie.
It's pretty darn good. I was very, very impressed, and I think it's going to be a fun rewatch having seen it now, where I'm looking for other clues, not the ones that are, I don't want to say fed to you, because this is one of those movies I love that doesn't tell you everything. Like, it doesn't like explicitly tell you shit. Like Guy being one example, his motivations, you have to suss them out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you have to suss everybody's motivations out kind of in this movie, which is cool. But I really enjoyed it. Good pick to the end of the month for sure, based on what somehow or another we picked that perfectly led to this movie.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it worked out totally. And, just to kind of circle back around, because it is new, Apartment 7A, I would, if you really like this movie, you might be interested in watching it. It's not that good.
I don't even think it's good worth mentioning, honestly, because it's not even part of the canon of the story.
Sure, but at the same time, it's like they are trying to connect the dots, and because the movie does end with the Castavets coming back and finding Terry, and so there is it can. I mean, it is trying to like see how all of those pieces were already in motion by the time that Rosemary and Guy got there. It's a movie that is so frustrating because it has so many good things in it or about it, but it does not piece it together properly into a really good movie, or even an average movie. It's just below average. And it's something where it's very clear that they wanted to do a remake of Rosemary's Baby, but kind of at the last second, they're like, no, let's make it a prequel instead. Nobody wants a remake. Let's do a prequel. And it's like, yeah, but it's pretty much a remake. So anyway, if there's any reason to watch it, it's for Minnie Castevet being played by Diane Wiest, because that was inspired casting.
that I feel like I have to see it just for that alone.
Yeah. So anyway, this is one highly recommend. Even if you don't think this is a true quote unquote horror movie, too bad. Recommend it as a horror movie.
Yep.
Period. End of story.
100%.
Roman Polanski was not a stranger to horror.
No.
So yeah, I mean, talk about like sometimes you get those artsy guys who really do multiple things in the genre that, anyway.
Yep.
We did it. Should we talk about what's coming next week?
Sure.
Yeah, what's next?
Next week. I'm going to get the right calendar here. This is long overdue. I think this is something Jason and I are probably surprised we haven't done before. To start November, we are going to talk about Creed.
Yeah.
Yeah, good feel good movie. Man, that's a good movie. We've done Rocky. We need to do some Rocky sequels at some point.
I agree.
But now, let's
do some Rocky sequels before we do some Creed sequels.
That's absolutely. Maybe not all the Rocky sequels.
No,
but some. But Creed, excellent movie. Excited to watch. Always excited to watch it.
Yep.
And I think it'll be a good combo. Because this is one of those situations where a legacy sequel really hits on, no pun intended, on all fronts.
It just works.
Yeah. So that is next Wednesday. That is November 6th. Creed. Go to filmseizure.com. That's where you can find where you can listen. You can find out what's been put out there, where you can follow us on social medias and the whatnot. This upcoming Monday at the same place, filmseizure.com, I have the start of kind of a bittersweet chapter in Monster Monday's history. These are the final 4 true. Sorry. That is not true. That is not. Hang on a second. Back that up. Monster Mondays. I am doing essentially the next to last Universal Classic Monster movie.
Oh,
So by the end of the year, that chapter will be closed, but it is a little bittersweet because that's been around since the start of that series. So, and I do that with next week's, The Phantom of the Opera, 1943.
nice.
So the only color Universal Classic Monster movie.
Very cool.
So that is all the same place, filmseizure.com, all the social media places and what have you. Tomorrow at my website, bmovieenema.com, I have my annual Halloween review for The Vampire's Night Orgy.
What?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good little European flick.
Nice.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. So yeah, you can check that out at bmovieenema.com. But then Friday, we get back into the regular schedule, for November 1st. It is a review of, Jodie Foster and, now I can't think of oh my God, why can't I think of his name?
Martin Sheen?
No, the guy from, Jesus. God.
What's the movie? What's the movie?
Mesmerized is the name of the movie. It's mid-80s.
Tune in to find out who Jeff.
Yeah. God, this is gonna. Hang on a second. I just got.
It's okay.
No, it's John Lithgow. Sorry, it's John Lithgow's. I could not think. Anyway, so that is on Friday. So check that out. 2 reviews of B Movie Enema available for you. So
beautiful.
Anyway, so until next week when we climb into the boxing ring and get coached up by Rocky, I'm Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Cuckoo, mister?
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure. Happy Halloween, everyone.